I was hired in back in 1988,
Mm-hmm.
and I had uh, just a friendly relationship with Herb Fisher, who was the director of motorsports at General Motors.
Yep.
And I had been in front of him as an amateur team owner, looking for sponsorship with some very creative programs. At those points, is prior to 1988, and prior to that, it was difficult for him. Although the programs made a huge amount of sense, budgets were really tight.
Yep.
Motorsports at GM were pretty much, with the exception of NASCAR, were pretty much run under the table. And so, we were never able to consummate a deal.
Yep.
And moving ahead just a little bit, uh, I had another amateur deal come up. It happened to be with Ford. This background is relatively important to help you understand how.
Yeah, please. Yep.
Uh, with a Mustang SVO. And it had a high level of success, and I became the director of racing for Mac Tools. And just over time, through a series of circumstances, Herb and I had stayed in contact, and he had followed that. And he had a couple programs that he was running that were struggling. He had a GTP program with Hendricks with a Lola. I think at that point in time it might have been a turbocharged Buick. Car was wickedly fast, but they couldn't get it to finish. He had a Trans Am program at Cars and Concepts in Brighton, which was a Beretta GT, and Cars and Concepts were building that Beretta GT for customers. It was they'd take a regular Beretta off the line, put spoilers on it, do all this stuff.
Got it.
That Trans Am program was really struggling, and Herb was frustrated with that, and so he contacted me and he said, "Can you have any interest at all in kind of taking a look at these things? Tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong." And I said, "Yeah, I'd have a huge interest in doing that." So I spent a year clandestinely going to all the IMSA races and all the Trans Am races and capturing what we GM were doing with those two programs.
Okay.
And what the competition was doing as well. And I put together a white paper and gave some ideas on what I thought GM could do to improve what we were doing. It wasn't we at that point in time; it was them. But and he liked what he saw, and he asked if I would come aboard and see if we could help straighten something out. And so back in 1989, then I went out to Cars and Concepts to take over that Beretta program.
Okay.
We designed a new car utilizing Bob Riley, who had worked for both Ford and GM. And we won a 1990 Trans Am championship.
Nice.
So, and from there, that led us to this first failed effort. And it was 1992, I think. The company was, as a company, was really struggling. I mean, financially, it was a big problem. And we had put together a great group of people at Cars and Concepts to do this Trans Am thing. And I didn't want that to go away. That program was coming to a conclusion. They weren't going to build the Beretta GT anymore, whatever. That program was ending, which was typical for GM road race programs. They'd last for a year and then they'd quit.
Yeah,
go do something until somebody else came up with the next best idea.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate,
and this is 1992.
Yeah, about 1992, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I put together a program with a fellow by the name of Jim Lutz, who also worked at GM. He was the one that actually brought me into the Trans Am program, and Laurie Dolph, who was working for the advertising agency at that point in time. I think it was K&E, Kenny and Eckert. Called American Patriot, and it involved building a limited production line of Corvettes that would be available to the public, that had stripped down interiors, big motors, lightweighting, just a high performance, bare bones street car, if you will. And so I knew that would be a hard sell, especially in the economic times. But it involved the UAW. We would bring in UAW people to help build the cars. They would be doing this at a time on the assembly line when the assembly line would normally be shut down, so we wouldn't interfere with normal production. I mean, it was pretty well thought out and a very interesting program. And so I knew going in front of a group, it would be a tough sell. So I went to individuals in the corporation. The chief financial officer at that point in time, Dave McClellan, was the guy was the chief engineer at Corvette. I forget a couple of the guys that were there. And they all liked it. It was a very interesting concept. It had never been done before. Okay.
Yeah.
And the fact that it involved our assembly plant and it was a motivation to them. I went to the head of the GM UAW. He loved it. But when it came right down to pulling the trigger as a group, you know how hard that can be. The heads go up and down when it's one-on-one, but you get in a group. They knew what the financial condition was of the company. Long story short, it didn't go.
Yeah.
It was, a great program, but it made a mark. All right, it made a mark in Herb's mind.
Yeah. And the timing was just not there.
Yeah, the timing just wasn't there. So we fast forward from there. I went on and did the Pratt Miller with Jim Miller when we built the Intrepid, which was still to this day one of the most amazing race cars ever built. Had success with that, and then went on to do the Oldsmobile program, the World Sports Car program with the Aurora V8. Wayne Taylor happened to be one of our drivers. And we won the WSC championship with that. And it was at that point in time, okay, when the Corvette was undergoing a radical design change. And when I say radical, I mean from a technology standpoint. Dave Hill was the chief engineer, okay, and he had done a number of projects inside the GM Corvette. He did the Hummer H3. He did a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And he was a technology-based guy, brilliant guy, great guy. And we were going to incorporate, we were building a brand new Corvette chassis. I mean, when I say brand new materials, it was going to be, for lack of a better term, almost a tube chassis car, because it was using hydroformed suspension rails that ran the length of the car.
Right.
They would take a steel tube, they would clamp it in a mold, they would put high pressure water into it, they'd blow that tube up into the shape of a frame rail with a constant wall thickness, super lightweight, super strong. It was the largest hydroform piece in the world at that point in time. So it was leading edge stuff. Herb had the foresight, the genius, and the vision to think, you know what? Because we had both, I should say this, we both had entertained the thoughts of going to Le Mans. But inside GM at that point in time, we knew it was a long shot, but, you know, we didn't have anything to lose.
Right.
So yeah. And he remembered back to that American Patriot program. And so he said, Doug, can you go back to that American Patriot thing, dust that off, and put something together with this new car that Dave Hill and his engineering team are doing? That was a C5.
Yep.
Because I think the time is right. We might be able to do this. We might be able to sell this race program.
Got it. Yeah.
I told him, and I was very frank with him, because we had won a Trans Am championship, we'd won an Oldsmobile championship with the World Sports Car, and then those programs just ended. And at that point in time, being very frank and candid, you know, I was tired of doing the one and out deal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that, yeah.
And
that
so
wears on you for sure.
Look, I've got no problem doing this. I'm excited about it. I'm energized about doing it. But we need to approach it differently. Because what we're doing isn't working. All right. I'm not going to put guys together, develop a new car, something as important as Corvette, and just have it be a one and done. You know, yeah, okay, fine. Give them the money, get them out of my hair. You run it for a year or two, and then you're done. I said, I'm just not going to do that. I'm tired of doing that. It's just a waste of time. You know, I had built up these programs with the different guys, and it was, for the most part, the core group of guys kind of followed us around. I don't want to do that. He said, well, put together what you think will work. I mean, okay. If nothing else, Herb pretty much let me do what I wanted to do. Okay. He just was that kind of guy. He had that level of genius about him. He recognized value that might be outside his normal operating box, and he was not afraid to take a chance.